Hey, yeah. Today I wanted to make a video that, frankly speaking, I wish I would have had to watch myself when I went through this process a year ago, which was importing my kitty from Russia to the United States. My partner and I were living on Sakhalin Island, which is basically as far east in Russia as you can go. And we ended up adopting our beautiful little boy there, and then we needed to take him to the States. The idea of importing a cat into another country terrified me before I did this, but to be completely honest, if you give yourself enough time, the steps themselves are not that hard to complete. It wasn't really that stressful, and I'm somebody who gets form fear. Didn't really have that feeling with this. The only thing that was really stressful for me about this process was the time frame. I did not give myself nearly enough time to do all of this. That was the biggest thing that I did wrong. Everything worked out in the end, and Kitty made it to the States, but it was really, really stressful. It involved a lot of tears, phone calls, vet visits, all kinds of stuff. So you give yourself about half a year, but that's kind of on the outside. That's being really, really cautious. Realistically, you probably need about 2 months to do this very comfortably. However, that being said, in my crunch that I was in, I was able to do it in a month. Wouldn't recommend it, was not nice. So let's talk about the actual requirements themselves. Now, what I did that I would recommend anybody do, just because information changes, things go in and out of date, whatever, check the CDC websites. I started there and it laid out very, very clearly everything that I needed to bring my cat into the States. So he needed a rabies vaccination and proof thereof, specifically the 1-year vaccination, not the 3, because at the time that I did this, that was not recognized in the States, as well as an importation document, a cat passport. Another important thing to note, there was no quarantine to bring a cat into the States. Now, that might have been specifically because I was bringing him from Russia, so definitely make sure if that is true for the country you are bringing your cat from. But I didn't have to worry about a quarantine, which was so nice. The process itself. So let's go back to this beautiful pet passport here. So basically what this is not only a cute little souvenir, but also a really great legal document that has a complete record of all of my cat's shots, any procedure he's ever had done. This is his full medical history. Complete with a cute picture, but that was superfluous. I just wanted him to have a picture. This is what I handed in at the airport, both in Russia to get on the plane with him and in Chicago when I got off the plane. You just need to be able to clearly point to where the rabies vaccine was. So I had it bookmarked. I also mentioned that I had an importation document, which looks like this. It's called a veterinary certificate. Now, this was not something that at the time that I did this was an absolute requirement from the United States. This was something that my Russian veterinarian recommended that I do, because to import a cat into Russia, you need to get one of these documents. So I ended up going ahead and doing that. I did not need to show this in Chicago. I offered it, but they didn't want it. It just is a document that states that the state veterinary clinic on Sakhalin looked at my cat 3 days before travel and he was healthy, he had all of his shots, and that he was going to Chicago. So this has everything about him. This also included our layover in Seoul, so that was kind of nice to have so that I had documentation all the way through, everywhere he went, everything he had done. So that was very nice, and the paper quality is really good. When I show you the one I got in the States, you're gonna see the difference in quality there. The key things that I wish I would have known before I went through this were that, first of all, there's a specific order that he is supposed to get things done in. I was not aware of that. There's a specific order for getting microchipped and getting vaccinations, specifically the rabies vaccination. Double check with your vet about what order that needs to happen in. I just thought, you get the booster shot, you get the distemper shot, you get a microchip, you're good to go. Now, again, the distemper shot and the microchip were not requirements of the United States. Those were requirements for Russia to export him. That was something else I didn't know, is that I was gonna have to adhere to Russia's export requirements, not only the import requirements of the States. That complicated my timeline significantly. The other thing that I didn't know was that for this export document, I needed to get it stamped not only at the state clinic, but also at the veterinary clinic at the airport. and that needed to happen 24 hours in advance. To get on the plane with him in Russia, I had to present both of these documents, and at that time I was told by the vet at the airport that if my cat showed any signs of illness, they could pull me out of line and quarantine him at that point. Luckily, I didn't have any trouble with that, but that was a possibility. Similarly, that could have happened in Chicago, so there was the chance that the vet who I spoke to in Chicago could have said, your cat sneezed, we're going to have to hold on to him for a second for some observation, even though there is no quarantine requirement in either country. And that was basically it. I had no trouble once I actually got to the airport and had everything done. I showed everything to the people at the airport in Russia. They waved us through, said he was very cute. I had no trouble on our layover in Seoul. I didn't actually have to show any documentation in Seoul because it was just a layover and I didn't leave the airport, so that was really nice. And then when I got to the States in Chicago, I basically, again, showed them his passport was the most important thing. They wanted the proof of the rabies shot. I gave it to them. They weren't even really interested in my export document. They didn't really care. And then we just walked out, got in the taxi, and went home. And it was fantastic. So I had a really, really good experience overall doing this. And like I said, had I given myself 2 months instead of 1, it would have been a really drama-free, stress-free experience overall. And for my cat, it would have probably been a little bit more comfortable too. The second part to this kind of, I guess, series would be what my experience was like bringing a cat from the United States back into Russia. That was easier because I kind of knew what to expect. It was a lot of the same sort of process, but in reverse. And this time I was required by the Russian law to bring the import document, which I didn't need for the States. So the one that I got in the United States is not very pretty. I guess we're not really used to doing this. I don't know. It looks like this. The difference in quality is pretty obvious, but that's because Russia loves their documents. I had to go to the state clinic in my state of Michigan to get that done, but only after my typical vet basically did the evaluation and determined that he was healthy, determined that he had all of his shots, that everything was up to date, everything was okay. And then I went to the state clinic and I had to get an additional stamp from them, basically get the document notarized so that it was, it was good to take to the airport and to the Russian authorities. The biggest problem that I encountered with this process was really unexpected to me, which was that my vet in Michigan didn't recognize the rabies vaccine that I got for my cat in Russia. And that really put the brakes on this process significantly because there was a lot of back and forth of, could I get, would it be better for him to get the vaccine again or to get an official translation of his stamp from his vaccine in this passport. It was this whole thing. Again, I wish I would have given myself more like a month to do this instead of a couple of weeks, which I thought was all it was going to take. The takeaway from this is give yourself way more time to do this than you think you need because something invariably is going to go wrong. In terms of bringing him back to Russia from the States, again, because I had all my documentation and everything, there was no problem. I showed them the passport, I showed them the import document, and we were waved right on through, no problem. Again, he was told he was very cute. I'm always proud, when he gets told that. As for the actual flight process and what it was like to book an onboard cat, that would be a video for another time. In terms of money, the last thing that I'll say about this, for me, excluding the flight itself, which I'll talk about another time, but the entire veterinary part of it and the document part of it. So coming from Russia to the States, all of his veterinary bills and all of the certificates and all of the folderol with that amounted to about $50 US. And the other way around, coming from the States to Russia was a little bit more expensive because just our vet visit was more expensive, and it came out to about $175. That's about it. So if anybody had any questions, certainly you can feel free to drop them down below. But hopefully that puts your mind at ease a little bit because like I said, I saw a lot of videos talking about people flying with their cats to other countries, but I didn't really find anything that gave any information about what the process was like, how stressful it would be, or how much it would cost. I'm so glad that I took the time and made the effort to travel with him because I don't know where I'd be without my little guy. This is my boy who has traveled all over the place. He's already been to, obviously he's born in Russia, went to South Korea, well he saw the airport there. We've been to the States. We had a layover, where did we have a layover? Switzerland? Yeah. We had a layover in Switzerland, and now we're back in Russia, just on the other end of the country, so it's been a little pilgrimage for him. Say hi, Chimpo. Hello. All right, guys, have a great day. Bye.